All right, today we are diving headfirst into a real-life art history mystery. We're talking about a genius painter who was pretty much lost to time, and then, centuries later, found again. So let's start digging for clues.
I mean, can you imagine that? You create some of the most breathtaking paintings the world has ever seen, but you die broke, and almost nobody knows your name. That was the actual life of the artist at the heart of our mystery today, Jan Vermeer.
And our investigation kicks off right here with our very first piece of evidence. This is a letter, supposedly from Vermeer himself, and it gives us this incredible window, not just into his art, but into his life.
Okay, so with any good mystery, you've got to start with the basics, right? To really get what's going on, we need to piece together the life of Jan Vermeer. You know, where he lived, how he worked, and why on earth he was such a secret for so long. So the first thing you need to know is that Vermeer's whole world was, well, pretty small. He wasn't some globe-trotting artist. He was born, he lived, he worked, and he died all in the exact same place, the town of Delft in Holland. This is a really crucial piece of the puzzle.
Now, when you picture a world-famous artist, you probably think of this huge studio just overflowing with hundreds of paintings. Vermeer's story? Yeah, it was the complete opposite of that. His life and his work were small, quiet, and super focused.
In his entire life, we only know of about 35 of his paintings. That's it. I mean, some artists crank out hundreds. But Vermeer, he worked slowly, so precisely, and he made every single tiny detail count. It's pretty clear he wasn't painting for fame or a quick buck.
And while his collection of art was small, his family was not. Vermeer had 11 children. Now just think about that for a second. 35 paintings to support a family of 13. The math just doesn't add up, which, you guessed it, brings us right back to that letter.
And here's our answer. This is how he managed to support such a huge family. He wasn't really selling his art for cash. As he says here in his own words, he was basically using his paintings like currency, trading them directly for stuff they needed, like food from the baker or shoes from the cobbler.
So, wait a minute. If he wasn't selling paintings for profit the way we think of it, how did he even operate as a professional artist? Well, he was part of this really important system back then, the Painters Guild.
We hear this term thrown around a lot in history, but what did it actually mean for a painter like Vermeer? How did these things even work?
This is actually a perfect, simple way to think about it. A guild was like a professional club. All the painters in town would join up. They'd set standards for quality, support each other, and just make sure their craft stayed at a really high level.
And this tells you a lot about his reputation in his own community. While the rest of Europe might not have known who he was, back home in Delft, Vermeer was a big deal. He was so respected that his fellow painters actually elected him as the hoofdman, or the headman, of the entire guild.
Okay, so we've got a handle on the man and his life. But what about the art itself? What is it that makes a Vermeer painting so special that we're still obsessing over it hundreds of years later? Well, it all comes down to one thing: light.
Have you ever noticed this? Seriously, look at his most famous paintings. There's almost always a window on the left side of the room, just bathing the whole scene in this soft, beautiful glow. And that was no accident. So why did he do it?
And here we go, the answer, straight from the source. For him, daylight was the key to seeing true color. He was obsessed with the way that natural light would fall on the texture of a piece of cloth, or a loaf of bread, or a pitcher of milk. That window on the left, it wasn't just decoration, it was his single most important tool.
So this obsession with light is really the heart of his signature style. You see it everywhere. He almost always painted these quiet, indoor scenes. And look at how he uses those bold primary colors, like the brilliant blues and yellows. This leads to his mind-blowing use of texture. You can almost feel the crumbly bread or the thick milk, and his absolute mastery of putting soft and strong colors right next to each other in perfect harmony.
So we've got this respected guild leader, this absolute master of light, creating these quiet little masterpieces. You'd think it's a storybook ending, right? Well, that's not what happened. The final chapter of Vermeer's story is the most shocking part of all.
At just 43 years old, Vermeer died. And he didn't die a celebrated master. He died in debt, leaving his family facing bankruptcy. Outside of his little town, the world had absolutely no idea who he was. For all intents and purposes, it's like his genius died right there with him.
Or did it? Just look at this timeline. The gap is incredible. He dies in 1675, and then crickets for over a century.
It wasn't until the 1800s that art critics started finding these amazing paintings and slowly piecing the puzzle together. And now, today, he's considered one of the all-time greats.
And that leaves us with this final, fascinating question. It's really the core of the whole Vermeer mystery. Is being great all about fame and money in your own lifetime? Or is it about creating something so powerful, so true, that its light can never really be put out, even after centuries in the dark? What do you think?